What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to Don't Say the F Word, Pro Wrestling and Combat Sports Podcast, where we do not use the F word when we talk about professional wrestling. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Steve Gibki, also known as Dark STG. Steve, thank you for taking the time this Sunday morning to do the show with us. We appreciate it. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Glad to be here. Sorry the other guy couldn't be here too, but he's very selective with when he comes out. So
I understand that. We have alter egos here at Don't Say the F Word also, and Mark the Monster. He has taken a nap. He is up late watching MJF to bring home the AEW World Title. So now I think Mark is going to be a big MJF Mark in the future. You're still in Jersey, right?
That's right. Yep, still in Central Jersey. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. Born and raised in Jersey?
Born and raised in Jersey. Really got used to how the circuit's been up here, the independent wrestling circuit. Really hot place for it. And then really started kind of branching out like a couple of years ago and getting out there and getting around to other states, seeing how certain towns are run and other companies, and it's crazy. It's like you're here for almost your entire life, and then wrestling gives you this opportunity to see the rest of the world, and going to Canada, the UK 3 different times. Last time I was out there, we got to go to Northern Ireland too, so it was really exciting stuff. And just to go down different avenues and see everything, it's like when you're doing it feels like work, but once it's all done, you kind of reflect back at it. You're like, oh wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, after it's said and done, you get to reflect on those moments that you probably thought you'd never have. What kid from Jersey going to Ireland? How was that? Good time?
That was that was fun. That was a little unbelievable. So that was my third UK tour for LDN, and then I was informed that the first leg of the tour, we were gonna fly from London out to Northern Ireland, and we were gonna, the first 2-3 shows were gonna be out there. So I was like, oh, okay, that sounds great. So went there, and then the rules at the airport are a little bit different out there than they are in the US, of course. And I probably should have looked ahead. And I'm sure Dark STG was kind of upset that they tossed away more than half of his brand new face paint.
Oh.
So it was very he was very limited on shows that he was able to do out there, but he still made his debut out in Northern Ireland. So, and that was a good crowd. Did a seminar at the school out there, the Lions Den. Great bunch of kids. Small warehouse, but when it comes to getting ready and building a good foundation, those are like the places like you want to start. You like to start in the nitty gritty, old school dungeon type atmosphere to really get a solid foundation, because it's a rough business, and it's not always going to be butterflies, rainbows, flowers, and everything. So get started. I always say, you can either, a lot of people say you can learn the hard way or you can learn the easy way. It's like you're gonna want to learn the hard way, one way or another. That way you realize, okay, let me not do this again, or let me learn from any future mistakes I'm gonna make. So, but yeah, no, Northern Ireland was a great time. The UK is always fun. Canada was another great one out there for. We were at Battle Arts Academy for Destiny Wrestling, and Destiny Wrestling always puts on an awesome show. I know they have a new regime out there. I think they've ran 1 or 2 shows so far since the new owner took over, but they still look really solid. So
awesome.
Hopefully go there soon.
You talked about doing a seminar in Ireland. Who did you train under? What school did you go to? Who were your coaches?
So I started with Ricky Reyes, former Ring of Honor guy, wrestled out in New Japan as well. Now he's living out in Texas. He's killing it out there. He's healing up from an injury, but he should be back on his feet again come the new year. So we trained with him for a straight year out in Long Island. And then after that, we were told about the D2W Academy, and then the head trainer there, Damian Adams. Damian Adams is a really, really awesome coach. He was trained down in OVW under Rip Rogers, who trained, a lot of, the golden era of Ohio Valley wrestling. So that was, being trained under him and really understanding the business from the old school standpoint, and it's embedded in you, and then it never leaves. It never leaves. All these years later, this was back in, I want to say we were training with him back in 2014 around then, and it never leaves. And then he's trained a lot of successful people too. Deanna Perrazzo, Tasha Steeles, Karen Q, Ray Jazz is another person he's trained, which I'm also good friends. He's making the rounds right now. Phenomenal worker. So yeah, he really has a who's who of people he's trained out there. So it's really good.
That's awesome, man. And your career started in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, right? You got your start around 2011, something like that.
So there's a little gray area from like 2008 to 2011. It's funny. Like I had my first match August of 2008. Really young, like too young, honestly, I would suggest. But back then there weren't as many independent promotions running as there are now. I mean, it was back then, like in 2008, especially around like the New Jersey scene. Ring of Honor had a couple of shows every now and then. Jersey All Pro Wrestling every now and then. And then you might have had like CZW, and then there was like only like 3, and then you really had to be like engraved or had like a name and like made for yourself in order to be on those shows. So there's a company going around, National Pro Wrestling Superstars, NWS. A lot of people know it. It was pretty much, if you sold tickets for the guy, you got enough tickets, he throws you on the show and everything. And then you obviously got to make sure you're trained first. So you show up to the show, help set up the ring, and then we'll train you in the ring before the show. I firmly suggest nobody get started that way. Find a school with a solid foundation, good trainers, good coaches. There's a lot of them out there now. Back then, not so much, or just not too many that were popular or well known. So from that 2008 to 2010, 2011 area was a little gray, and then like 2011, once we had a match with Ricky Reyes, and like we had the match, and looking back at it, very surprised for how we did with the little that we knew. And then I just remember the match started, and Ricky charged at me, and I hit him with a drop toe hold, and I got right up, and I just stared him down, and he looked at me, and then he looked at his partner, and he looked back at me, and he's like, you did a drop toe hold, you got right back up, you didn't grab a hold. And I'm like, he's like, well, where do you guys train at? Well, we don't, it's like, yeah. He's like, oh, and he's like, Sundays, if you can, come out to Long Island. And then, I mean, we're still you're talking like senior year of high school, like going into college almost at this point. And we're just sure. And we're, driving out there every weekend, to see and watch the show, Victory Pro Wrestling. And then at the same time, the next day, train with him at the school. And those were really great. The amount that he was able to teach in the time that he did, and give us a good, just a good idea of where to go with things. And then once we got with Damian Adams was the person who really molded and embedded just being a worker, into you. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm always amazed when I talk to guys and I hear about how independent wrestling was back in the early 2000s. And there's a lot of parallels of kind of how MMA exists in the early phases of things. I competed in MMA. I'm just outside of Cleveland, And early 2000s, I started training MMA and jiu-jitsu and catch wrestling and things like that. And kind of the local scene before things were sanctioned, it's the parallels between an amateur MMA, or I wouldn't even call it amateur because there's a lot of it wasn't even sanctioned by a state athletic commission, and the indie pro wrestling scene where it was guys go in, help set things up, sell tickets, you can be on the show. You got things where it's a gym's putting something on and they're looking for someone to feed to one of their wolves, so they are going to a bar on Friday night to find someone to throw in a ring with somebody on Saturday, so one of their top guys looks really good. But you have a martial arts background also, correct? Taekwondo?
Yeah, correct. So I started karate, Taekwondo in 2004. That I want to say about 6-7 years worth of experience. I got my black belt once I was 4 years in. I was on the traveling team, so I did karate. Did karate at a Karate World in Kenilworth, New Jersey, owned and operated under Master Jeff Dunn. Phenomenal karate master. Really took the Jun-Ri system, brought it over here, and it just the way the whole process worked. And growing up, I owe a super large part of my life, my mindset, my discipline, to doing karate and getting started at that right age too, because that adolescent age is kind of what really shifts you. And it was the sparring, the forms, the combinations, just the discipline behind everything was awesome. So did a bunch of tournaments, the AAU tournaments, competed in both like forms and sparring. It was funny, like one year I would get first in forms and I would get second in sparring, and then I would come back the next year and I would get first in sparring and then second in forms. So really always tried to get the two first places. And then once I got my first degree black belt, when MMA started getting more popular, and then I started kind of like diving into the we're looking at like around like 2006 2007, once Pride kind of is at like its apex. UFC consumes Pride. A lot of those Pride guys come over, and now you have a whole crazy amount of fights that you can now do. And then the Ultimate Fighter, of course, kicks off, and I'm watching at home, and just a kid that does karate and everything, and I'm watching at home, and I look at Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner on Spike TV beating the crap out of each other, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, what is it? This is amazing, so that, like, I really became a huge fan, like, and especially my favorite fighter of all time, Lyoto Machida, comes in, and then you could tell with the karate background and everything, because growing up with pro wrestling, the first person I ever saw on TV for when it came to pro wrestling was Ultimo Dragon. And then one of my other favorites.
What an amazing first exposure to pro wrestling, being Ultimo Dragon.
It wild, absolutely wild. The whole get-up, everything, his style, the smoothness he had in the ring, the technical wrestling he brought, it blew my mind. And then after Ultimo Dragon, the next person like I see and I become a fan of is Rob Van Dam, right? So you have two guys, martial artists that were able to kind of integrate it into wrestling. I'm just like, well, I should really pick up karate. So I really started karate because of Ultimo Dragon and Rob Van Dam. And then once Lyoto Machida kind of came into MMA, I was like, oh man, now I'm starting to, get the mixed martial arts itch a little bit. So then I started amateur wrestling, and around middle school and everything, and I picked that up. And then I was trying to balance the two at the same time. Broke my foot at karate class, right? The only time I've ever broken something.
I'm gonna knock on wood for you too, bro. That's
so broke my foot in karate, and it was at the beginning of the wrestling season too. It was like around this time of year, like right before Thanksgiving. And I was out for the entire season, and it bothered me so much. And then by the time like my foot healed up and I got back together, I was like, I really missed that the amateur wrestling season. I really want to dedicate myself to that. So I put karate on the back burner, trained, and then the next amateur wrestling season, I remember I was undefeated. I went 11-0, and then it was the first time I made it to states. And when I made it to states, that's when I was like, oh, this is just like how we talked about. There's levels, you have independent wrestling, and then you have, like on TV, it's the same thing where it's just like, okay, when you're in season, and then once you make it to states, it's there's levels to it that are insane. But like, because I saw how good those kids were and I knew I wanted to be there, I really dedicated like there was no off season, pretty much.
Right.
As season ended, maybe you took like a week or two, but then you got back in shape and you're like, okay, how can I transform myself to come better, to come back better next year. And then it went through that almost all through high school too. So
yeah, man, and you mix those two things together, that amateur wrestling through high school with doing taekwondo and karate whenever you're younger, that level of discipline that ingrains in you, I think that's something that you never shake. I had a cousin of mine was Division I wrestler in Clarion, and it's training with him when I was doing MMA. Like you said, there's levels, and there's levels of dedication and things you're going to go through, and I think that sticks with you. And looking at you today, like you're bodied up. Like, what are your stats right now? You're like what, like 6'1", 6'2"?
Well, 6'1", depending on what convenience store I'm walking into. Yeah, like around 6 foot. Right now, weighing around like 245. And so that was the thing when you say like the discipline kind of like never leaves you and you never shake it, was because after high school, I'm like, okay, like, I did I was successful with karate, got my black belt. I, was successful with amateur wrestling. I made it to states. I was top 25 in the state. My main goal was to win districts and get my name on the wall in the wrestling room, which I did that junior year. So I was like a year ahead. So my motivation going in senior year was, sadly, it was like a little lackluster because I accomplished like my goal like a little bit sooner than I expected. But so then going into college, I'm like, and at that time it's around like 2013, and I'm looking at WWE, who's like, the only player in town back then, and I'm just like, all the really guys that are hot on the independents are starting to get picked up, so they're really looking at the independents. Let me just grind and work on the independent scene. If I could go back now, I would do the opposite, and I would have accepted a couple of college offers for wrestling. I would have went down that path. But at the time, that's what was going on, and that's what I was like, okay, this is the avenue I have to go through. Now looking back at it, I'm just like, well, I have much more experience in that form of the business because of it, so I'm thankful. Like, I was thrown into it so early, so you understand. You watch episodes of Dark Side of the Ring, and you're like, oh, well, once you're on the indies for like more than 10 years, you kind of get your fair share of seeing certain things like that, especially back then.
Right.
So, so like dove into the independents, and then I'm looking around, I'm just like, man, it's like I'm a scrawny, kid that just got out of high school that had to make weight all the time, and I'm in the ring with these guys that are like 30 something years old, jacked, and I got to look believable to take these guys on. And I was always a huge fan of Batista as well, because like to me, like that was the guy. He had the the charisma, the size, everything. He just the guy. I know a lot of kids that grew up during the ruthless aggression era and everything, like they're like, oh, Cena's their guy. Well, for me, it was more Batista, right? So that's when I started to dive into bodybuilding a little bit. I was working out at the YMCA when I first started like training and really like hitting the weights, and the YMCA it's a great starting ground for
sure. Yeah.
Any kids that are just starting to get involved, like in the family friendly, and then I met like really like two like my greatest friends of all time. I trained with a professional basketball player from Europe. His name was Corey Brown, and Corey really helped help me understand like the way athletes should train. And then my other good friend Gary Barella, who very well trained in martial arts too, and kind of who I would consider my Mr. Miyagi almost. To help show me the ways. And then once I got to a certain level, they were like, listen, if you're taking this serious and this is your dream and you want to level up, like you can never stay comfortable. You always have to make yourself comfortable, and you always have to keep progressing. There's this old school bodybuilding gym not too far away in Maplewood called Diamond Gym. You should really check it out, because back in the day, all the pro wrestlers used to go there. Ricky Steamboat, Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith, the Road Warriors. Anytime that they were in town, they would always go to Diamond Gym to work out. And I'm like, okay, like I'll go check it out. Sure. I went to Diamond Gym late 2014, early 2015, I went there at night. I walked in. I was scared shitless. Man, let me tell you, I walked into this gym. It was like a freaking time machine. Like outside it's like 2014, 2015. I walked inside. I'm like, it's like 1976. Like the wooden panels, all old school machines, steel weights. There's chalk on the ground. There's dents in the floor. There's all these old faded pictures of just bodybuilding legends. And as soon as I walk in, I look over and I see this picture of the original owner shaking hands with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, like that, was standing right outside the gym. I'm like, oh my God! I'm like, this place is a whole nother level. And then I look behind the front desk, and there's this tall guy with this hat, hoodie over, his name Greg Peterson, right? And then I'm going. He's like, oh, can I help you? He's got a very deep voice like that. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just considering getting a membership here, maybe start training. Oh yeah, if you're interested in coming in, and starts asking me, some stuff and everything, and I'm just like, well, I'm trying, looking to become like a pro wrestler and everything, so just trying to put some size on. He's like, oh, well, if you want to take a look, there's an upstairs too. I'm like, oh, there's an upstairs. We go upstairs. There's a freaking boxing ring on the second floor. There's all these speed bags. There's these guys like hitting the back. I'm like, this place is no joke. It was literally like if you've ever seen the scene from Rocky 3, where Apollo brings Rocky to where like Apollo got his start, and there's all these guys in this dungeon, this dark, gritty basement, just sweating, going to town, training, like just not a care in the world. There's like there's no like chicks like distracting them from working out. There's no outside noise. Everybody's just focused and dialed in. I'm like, this is where I need to be. So started there, and I've been going there for 6-7 years now. Dwayne McDaniels is the owner. He does a phenomenal job running that place. They're getting the whole front of the gym redone right now, and it really, everybody there takes care of each other, because, and you might go there, right, and you might be like, well, Gibki said everybody here takes care of each other, but everybody here is talking shit to each other. I don't know what's going on. But it's that tough love type of energy that you're really not going to get when you go to some of these other gyms where they sugarcoat everything for you, hold your hand across everything. This is old school. We're not going to tell you what you want to hear. We're going to tell you what you need to hear. If you're here dragging ass and you didn't come to work out, go home. Because like the atmosphere is not about that. There's a great group of guys there. My training partner, Luke Mon, just got his IFBB Pro card last summer. Got to give him a shout out. Yeah, so just a lot of great guys there.
When you find a place like that, it's untouchable. It's that steel sharpens steel kind of mentality, and Absolutely. That talking shit to each other. That's that big brother bullying. It's not real bullying. It's just making sure you're staying on your toes and you're not letting people don't let you slip up. And that's always a great thing to have.
Yeah, and I feel like more people need that nowadays, because life it gets hard. Life is going to test you. life is going to break you down, whether it's your job, whether it's your relationship, whether it's chasing your dream. All these things eventually are going to hit you hard and try to break you down. And if you don't have thick skin, and if you're not prepared to take the punches that it's going to throw at you, then it's going to beat you down, and it's going to leave you, in an uncomfortable situation where you're not going to feel yourself, and you're just going to be wasting time. And you need to be prepared in order to face the challenges that come out of here in life. This is, and you might be like, well, it's just gym, it's just weights. It goes beyond that. It transcends you. I really got I got so many lessons in the world of bodybuilding. It was absolutely insane how it's more than just lifting weights. It's character building. It's waking up every day and being a better version of yourself than you were the day before. It really shows you that without passion, life has no meaning. Everybody has a passion for something, and you have to keep that passion, keep that fire alive, keep it burning. It's so important, just so important.
Man.
Tom Platt. If anybody needs any motivation, you go to YouTube and type in Tom Platt's motivation. Guarantee you, doesn't matter if you're into the gym, doesn't matter if you're into baseball, football, doesn't matter, dancing, whatever your passion is. You listen to this guy talk about his love for bodybuilding and how it transcended his life, and it will light a fire under your ass no matter what it is you do. And it's just great motivation. It really is.
Man, one of the best things about a gym like that is, like Henry Rollins told us, the iron never lies to you. You can't lie about getting that lift. You can't lie. You can write it down different. You can put it in the app different, but you didn't get it.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite quote. One of my best friends, Casey Navarro, I'm sure you know of him. He got me and a couple of my buddies, all the inner circle. We got these dumbbell plate necklaces, 45-pound plates, of course, like a tool bag necklace. But I always wear it, and then when people ask, what's the point of the necklace, and I go, people lie, manipulate, and deceive, but 45 pounds will always be 45 pounds.
Yep.
That's the weights never lie. So it's one of my favorite quotes right there.
So what's your training look like now? Now with pro wrestling being so influential, you have the Taekwondo background, but you put on some size. Those kicks aren't going to be the same as they were when you were younger and lighter. So now is your training, you got to make some modifications. Are you strictly bodybuilding style training? Is it more functional, high intensity training, or you working out a combination of those things?
We were doing a combination of those things. I want to say a little bit, over a year, 2 years ago, as we were coming out of the pandemic, I got a call from my one buddy from high school. His dad, who's a very, very good mixed martial arts trainer, Louis Azeredo, fought in Pride and Bellator under the shoot to box system. I was going out to Hoboken Fight Club, great mixed martial arts school. If anybody's ever wants to get started, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, grappling, mixed martial arts, all in general, check their classes, Hoboken Fight Club. I was going out there. I was training there for around a year or so. I got to mix in with Gabriel Gonzaga, former UFC heavyweight. That was fun. So I would be able to train Muay Thai and MMA kind of 2 times a week, and then the rest of the week was all bodybuilding, heavyweight training. Very opposite against each other. So eventually it was kind of like you got to pick one. So I kind of stuck to the bodybuilding. We finally did another bodybuilding show in August. Got 2 first places and a second place, and then qualified for a national show. So we're aiming to do the Team Universe national show coming up in July 2023. So right now what it's looking like is, because pro wrestling's hot, and the schedule looks good for it, so we want to make sure I'm able to move around and do things that I'm able to do, and plus I had a lot of great conversations with a lot of well-experienced wrestling veterans over this past weekend that I really look up to. I won't drop any names yet, but it was the absolute perfect people to talk to, especially coming from my character and my background, to not only, you know, keep with the bodybuilding and keep myself in shape and hang on to the muscle, but at the same time take time to work on agility and mobility and train and hit the bag again and practice good form and technique. So right now what we've been doing is a solid split from, like, you know, Monday all the way through Saturday. It's like 6 days out of the week where we're training, you know, maybe like one rest day. And to take that rest day, it's got to be forced too, because like you know, today is a forced rest day, right? Sunday is like a forced rest day almost, because then I'll just lose my mind if not. But even if there's no show on Saturday, then we're hitting the second leg day. And I got to tell you, like, my trainer Greg, you know, with like Saturday leg days, let me tell you, if you are not about it, don't show up. And he tells it to all of his clients. And then my training partner Luke Mon is somebody who can really, you know, vouch for that. Saturday leg days are absolutely no joke, and I do my very best. If I don't have a show or not, I'm in there, and I'll train with them, and he will break you down till you are like can't see. You know, you need at least a half hour to get back to your car. You know, it takes something. You know, out of you, like you leave a piece of you in the gym every time you hit a Saturday leg day. But I realized that, you know, if I got shows on the weekend, there's no way that's happening. So we'll make sure, you know, we'll hit chest on Monday, you know, we'll keep it isolated. We'll hit legs on Tuesday. Tuesday's known as like the light leg day. You know, we'll hit like a small, like maybe arms or something on Wednesday. Thursday will be like back and biceps. Friday will be shoulders, and then depending on how the show schedule looks for the weekend, you know, either a second leg day on Saturday or kind of like a full body, you know, circuit to kind of like loosen up and get ready for shows. So
that's a solid week of training right there, man.
Yeah, and it's consistent, and it's consistent. I can't, like, you know, there's no time to really take any time off. You know, it's something to where, especially if, you know, you're going to be serious about doing a national show in July, you have to really be on the grind, and you have to be on the money, and you have to be on point, you know, and especially for diet. Like, this is the time of year, yeah, you could get away with the diet, you know, being a little bit flimsy, but you still have to hold yourself accountable. You know, you be organized and disciplined during the week, and then if you know you're going to be out late on the weekends because of shows and everything, then, you know, enjoy the weekends. But as long as you were disciplined and organized during the week.
So looking forward into 2023, which I can't believe it's about to be 2023. And where do you see Steve Gibki? Where do you see you? Where do you see Dark STG? All things working. You have a magic wand. What's 2023 look like for you?
I see 2023 as Dark STG finally getting opportunities and the spotlight that he should have got years ago. I know, like, this is this is a character and an entity that is just kind of came out onto the main stage a little bit over a year ago, but this is not something that is going to stay on a small circuit, small independent show for much longer. This is something that is ready for a much bigger scale, like a much a much more quality audience, to say, just bigger quality companies, a lot more traveling. You're just going to be seeing you know, a new level of it, because that's the one thing that I always make sure I follow, and you'll see it in one of my most recent Instagram posts too, is that you have to always evolve, and you have to always progress, and changes are always being made. And especially after the knowledge and advice that I've received over this past weekend, I can say that there are big big necessary changes are going to be made very, very soon. Very soon.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an exciting year. It's going to be an absolutely exciting year. That PWI 500, I think it's time to crack that for sure.
For sure.
And that's something to where, no disrespect to anybody on it. I'm sure everybody on that has earned their spot, but that's something where, I'm going to get put on that, and it's going to be a nice number, and it's going to be high. And not even because I'm thinking about it, because of what I do will transcend and put me there. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you got a big time look, big time ability. Dark STG that's a big time character, and your production, even in smaller shows, it shows how much you care about your character and what you're putting out there, and doing the parallel videos, all those things. It definitely shows that this character means something to you, and whenever you have that portraying something, there's nothing but success that can come from that. Especially you throw in the discipline level that you have, all these things. I think 2023 is going to look real good for you, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's a long time coming, but the character will only be as successful and as serious as you make it. And a lot of people, think that it's just once the face paint goes on and the contacts go in, that's when the character comes out. It's always in here. It's always in here. It's me with that volume way turned up, and it's that character, and it has developed such a awesome loyal fan base already, and I know those people are watching this and listening right now, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate their support, their love. When they share the post, they send it to their friends, they post it on their story. They're making artwork, they're making action figures. They do phenomenal jobs making cause in the video games. I like it, spot on. I'm honestly backed by it. But it's such an awesome, loyal. I don't even want to say fan base, like almost like it's like a family, almost, because they understand the entity and the embrace your dark side meaning and what it really is, because it's taking all that negative energy, all those heartaches, all the times you were said no, and just all like anger, frustration, depression, bottling all that energy up and putting it towards something that's going to help you evolve and progress some way. That embrace the dark side. It's letting that energy, turning that pain into power, and putting it towards a goal or something that you really want, and letting it fuel you and go after that. That was another Tom Platz thing I always heard: turn that pain into power. He was training for his Olympia, and his fiance left him for his training partner, and he would have to show up to the gym, and then there would be his fiance and his former training partner all kissy face and everything like that, and he's right over, he's 20 feet away from them trying to get ready and train for the Olympia. And like, did it drive him crazy? Like, absolutely. Did it tear apart his heart and really like change up his world? Absolutely. But he took that pain, and that's how you always have to, the situation is always going to depend on your outlook on it. Because it's whether you look at something as a negative or you look at something as a positive. You really do. You're the one at the end of the day that's in control of your emotions and in control of how you see things and your outlook on things. The shittiest thing could happen to you, right? And I understand it's terrible, but you can always try to take that and twist it and try to make a positive out of it, or try to look at, okay, like what, there's got to be something in here, like, and I will search and use my time and energy to find the deepest possible positive meaning that I can behind whatever this is. So turn the pain into power, man. That's the next t-shirt right there for you. Yeah.
Get that with a nice Dark STG logo right behind it. Put that thing on prowrestlingtees.com. You're gonna sell those, that's for sure.
there we go. I mean, I'll throw it up there. I'll see how many of the how many of the fans are into it. I really gotta credit Tom Platz for that one. So I might have to put a copyright at the bottom or something.
So, Ultimo Dragon was kind of your first exposure into pro wrestling. As flashy of a character as you could possibly give witness to first. You know, I think I'm a little older than you. I'm 40. So my exposure were some of the big cartoon characters of the 80s and a lot of just big guys. You had your Hogans, your Andres, Randy Savage. And I look at those guys and compare those in contrast to what it would have been to first be exposed to Ultimo Dragon. And it's certainly no wonder you were instantly hooked into pro wrestling. As you look at Ultimo being your first exposure, what 3 wrestlers would you say would be the most influential as a fan for you to apply to your career?
Right. Man, that is always. I'm happy that you say 3 because whenever anybody asks me for one, it's like,
dude, it's impossible to come up with one. Even as just a guy, as a fan, I couldn't do it.
It's almost like movies. It depends on your mood.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on where you're at in the type of sense. Because like obviously like Ultimo Dragon is always going to be up there because he was my introduction. Batista is one because that's what really when I saw like, okay, like you want to be larger than life, and like the era where I was growing up, guys were larger than life. Like he was on top of that hill. At the same time, in like that third spot, I could really probably give to Rob Van Dam because of how creative and different he was from the regular person on the roster, and how he took his way and like, you know, shifted martial arts and his background into wrestling. You know, and like I see, and like nowadays, like I see Malachi Black as somebody who was really able to kind of do that. You know, it's like almost a new form of that, and that's somebody that's really, you know, like right now just gets like I'm telling you right now, people do not realize how smart that guy is. That guy is an absolute freaking genius.
You know, seeing the matches that he put together, I became aware of him as Tommy End on a lot of the indies, and seeing him in NXT and the way his matches were put together, his in-ring psychology for putting a match together, everything always makes sense. He does things in a way that you would do them in a fight. So you're able to you could take Malachi Black or Aleister Black WWE NXT match, and those are matches you could show someone who may be a lapsed wrestling fan. They may be not a wrestling fan at all. You could show them one of his matches, and you could get them to forget that the F word exists in the world of pro wrestling. They could see it and go, okay, he had to have just kicked the shit out of that guy because that looked perfect. And it's really amazing that he's able to do things that way.
That's that Muay Thai martial arts background that he has too. And that's why I think it is such a detriment, and it's so forgotten about too. It's like everybody should have just a form of legitimacy on their resume in order to get in. You really should, because the way this business of pro wrestling works, you should have that one background. And I'm not saying everything has to be like fighting. It does not have to be. It could be Muay Thai, it could be karate, it could be amateur wrestling, it could be jiu-jitsu, it could be any style, because that's what makes pro wrestling fun, is that it's different styles brought together. That's why mixed martial arts and UFC exploded the way it did, because we're like, what if we took this style versus this style? So let's see what happens. You know, and pro wrestling is very, you know, close to that. You know, and I understand, like, you know, you have to have the charisma and be a superstar too. That's that it factor that you're never going to be able to teach. But if there's one thing that everybody can teach and can learn, it's one style of being legitimate.
Yeah.
You know, make yourself legitimate. You want to get in here and you want to I'll tell this. I don't care anymore. You get into this business. If you're playing tough guy, you're only going to last for so long.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Like whenever I was heavy into mixed martial arts and I was fighting, I was training, I was competing, I became a lapsed wrestling fan because I had a hard time separating the training I was doing and the product that I was watching during that time frame. And it took a, I don't want to say it was a conscious effort on my part, but I had to try to fall back in love with pro wrestling because I made myself jaded to the product because I was overanalyzing things and not enjoying things for what I was being shown. And then in that, I got exposed to a lot of the New Japan style, a lot of what was happening on the indies with Ring of Honor and Bryan Danielson and these guys who were presenting a lot of realism in the professional wrestling they were doing. So the psychology would make sense. The movements would make catch as catch can, and the flow of everything they were doing, those transitions, it's what would happen in a real fight. It's what you would actually do in training jiu-jitsu and training catch wrestling under Bart Vale. It's the exercises we would go through. We would go from hold to hold to hold to learn those counters. And so everything would make sense. I think you're right. I think in today's era of pro wrestling, as we look 5 years into the future in the world of pro wrestling, it would do nothing but benefit guys to spend time in an MMA gym, in a boxing gym, with collegiate wrestlers to learn the realistic transitions of how they should get from spot A to spot H and move through those sequences.
It's just having something and having the knowledge to defend yourself as well. Like, so self defense is it's not just a skill, it's a gift at the same time. And in order to learn self defense, you have to have discipline. And there's a lot of people that the past couple of years have got into this business and they lack discipline, and it shows. And it just, you're not gonna, number one, you're not gonna last. Number two, the business does not want you.
Yeah.
Not want you. So, that's the truth behind it. But yeah, man.
Yeah, nothing about the grind of what it is to be a pro wrestler and move up through the indies and move on to where people ideally want to think their career could go. Nothing about that grind looks easy. Nothing about it. It seems to be a very unforgiving business to get into and try to establish yourself and move forward and grow and expand. Your margin of error is so small. If you blow opportunities, it's hard to come back from that. You have entire websites and YouTube channels just solely based off exposing guys making mistakes in the ring, and it's going to hurt a lot of guys. Even though it's going to get those people views, it's going to hurt a lot of guys' career to be attached to quote unquote botches, whatever it may be. And I don't know that a lot of guys have the discipline to bounce back from those kinds of mistakes that could haunt them, if it's even for 3 weeks, where all of a sudden they're a meme, they're a gift people are sharing. It takes a lot of something inside to come back from that and continue to push forward and move forward. And if you're not disciplined, I don't know how you could ever do it.
Well, that's that thick skin that we were talking about before too, with the life is tough. It's like, this business is going to be tough. If you don't have the thick skin, fans are always going to say stuff. And it's going to, they don't realize like how much of what they say and that the wrestlers actually see. And like, obviously it's going to bother them, like who wouldn't it bother? But that's why you have to learn how to kind of have thick skin and understand, like, nobody has walked in anybody else's shoes a single day in their life. So you cannot judge a single person. You don't know what's going on in their life, how it's different from yours. You have no right, you have no ground to stand on. And at the end of the day, once you realize that, that's when you really have to, okay, brush that off. Let's move on.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us here on Don't Say the F Word. Where can our listeners find you? Where can they keep up with Steve Gibki and, of course, Dark STG?
Right. So I want to say Instagram is probably the best one. I've really slacked with Twitter in the past, but Instagram is really always steady. So at dark_s_t_g, and also subscribe to that YouTube channel, Steve Gibki /Dark STG, because that's where all of our promos and our vignettes are going to drop first. And if you're subscribed, boom, you'll get that notification right off the bat before you'll see someone share it, and it starts trending almost maybe a week or so later. Be the first one to see it.
Yeah.
And then Twitter at dark_STG. So.
Yeah, I think if anyone out there hasn't seen the parallel vignettes and that progression of Dark STG and that development that you put in those videos, I think they're missing out, because that's really great. Did you write all that together? Were you the sole producer in that? Was that a collaboration with someone?
Yeah, collaboration with Salvatore Media. You'll find him tagged in Instagram and everything. Sal does a phenomenal job filming. Does a phenomenal job. I went to Kane for media and film as well. So awesome. When I do get together with Sal for some of these projects, as two film majors, we both know kind of what we're looking for and where we're going, and especially with the character in itself, there's a lot of deep lore that people aren't going to recognize from the first time watching it, and then I think over time, once they see the video, once they see certain posts, they'll start to see that everything connects and everything has a meaning behind it. There's really small little Easter eggs that if people are really intrigued, they can look for in there, and not just in there, but almost in any post. Everything connects. So just be on your toes.
Man, I, like many wrestling fans, love the Easter eggs in wrestling, and sometimes, even though there aren't any, we'll make up our own.
Yeah.
Man, again, I want to say thank you. We talked a little about some of our favorite quotes here and there. One last quote from you to the listeners out there. You're going to hit them with one thing. What do you got?
One quote. I was telling my buddy about this one last night too, because he's got very, very big opportunities coming up, and it's very nerve-wracking, and he's got the the butterflies and doubts and everything. I said, listen, expect the worst, hope for the best, and that's it. If the worst happens, hey, I expected it. No skin off my back, right? If anything but the worst happens, that's awesome. I expected the worst.
Yeah.
So expect the worst, hope for the best, and embrace your dark side.
It's awesome, man. Thank you. And everyone, this has been Jeremy and Steve. This is Don't Say the F Word. We don't use the F word about professional wrestling. You shouldn't let your friends use it either. Peace.